Welcome back to the center of it all, everyone. I am joined here today with Ashley Adams, the co-host of Schoolin Life podcast. Thank you, Ashley, for joining me.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Brittany.
So can you just start by telling me a little bit about yourself? I mean, I know that you're the Director of Student Affairs here at Penn State, but what else should we know?
Yeah, so in addition to being a Director of Student Affairs at Penn State, I also teach for the College of Education, but when I'm not teaching Penn State students, I am the creator and co-host of Schoolin Life, a podcast, a lifestyle brand, a blog, and a growing opportunity for women in particular to get together and build community. We have conversations, and our tagline is that it's about life, love, and occasionally libations. So it's a really good opportunity for folks to talk about what's happening in their life, what's meaningful for them, and we really pride ourselves on having and expanding those coveted girlfriend conversations that you kind of have in private with the world.
Yeah, I always, obviously, I have my girlfriends, we have our conversation, so I understand that. But you, I mean, obviously you're my, well, not obviously, but you were my first podcast personality on my show, so welcome, I love that.
Thanks so much.
But you kind of mentioned a little bit about what the podcast is, but can you go into a little more detail, what you guys talk about, maybe some recent episodes that you guys just had?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, our tagline is that it's about life, love, and occasionally libations. My co-host and I, Marcy, she lives in Atlanta, so we actually podcast remotely. I live here in State College, and so weekly we have the podcast, we record, and it comes out every Tuesday. And the conversations are really broad. They're the conversations that you have with your girlfriends, right? Like on a recent episode, we talked about sex and sexuality. The importance of like knowing yourself and owning your sexuality. We talk about dating and religion. We had an episode called Tinder and Jesus. We talked about the intersection between like online dating and religion, and like how that can get like really messy and awkward. We had a conversation about mentorship and the importance of being mentors ourselves. As growing professionals and also mentoring other people. And so those are conversations that are really important to us, and we think are really important to women as well.
Yeah, I mean, mentorship is like great for me. I have so many mentors in my life that I look up to, that they help me, and I think that is so important to everyone to have, to be able to identify that person that you can go to, ask those questions, get some answers on things. But then how do you guys decide what topics to talk about?
Yeah, you know what? I think, so I typically manage the biggest part of our episode, which is called I Digress. It's the sort of center of the conversation. And really, I do a lot of research. I'm reading a lot of articles, popular magazines. I'm listening to my girlfriends when they talk. And I take, not their personal stories, obviously. Confidentiality is important in my friendships. But I do take like the themes and the things that we're talking about, and I kind of grow those, right? Expand those and think about the generalities that come from that. So for example, we just had an episode called Say Less. That was yesterday's episode, so this past Tuesdays. And we talked about the things that people say, particularly to women, that just put them in such awkward positions, right? So they're like, oh, when are you gonna have a baby? Or, hey, looks like you're picking up a little weight. Those like really, and then you're just like, what? Yeah. And so like, how do you navigate those as a woman? Like helping women think about like how they can navigate those awkward conversations, even when they're wishing people would just say less.
Yeah, like you're wishing that, please don't ask that again.
Yes, exactly.
But you want to be polite, and you want to give them, the right answer. So I totally understand that.
Yeah.
So then, that's the kind of conversation that you hope to open up and create that dialogue for people. But what do you hope people will learn from your podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the mission and vision of Schoolin Life is really that women will learn something from the episode. Every week when we are talking, we give out homework, right? In theme of Schoolin Life, you have homework every week, and we're asking you, do some introspection, think about what's important to you, have the conversations that you're listening to Marcy and I have on the episode, have those with your girlfriends, have them with your daughter, have them with your cousins and your friends. Make sure that, we had an episode about birth control. So many women, millions of women use birth control, but it's not something that we talk a lot about. There's so many options, there's side effects, and we want women to have those conversations with their doctors, we want them to have them with their friends, and so we hope that women feel connected to the topics that we're talking about, and then also that they share them with others. And I do want to just mention that I'm talking a lot about women, but we know that about 20% of our listeners are men, and hey guys, we love that you listen, thank you so much. And we hope that they're listening to these and listen to these episodes and learning sharing things too, right? And that they're talking with their partners or their friends about it as well. So.
Yeah, I listen to podcasts all the time when I'm in a long car ride, which happens a lot often than I'd like to say. So those podcasts help me get through. But why the name Schoolin Life? Where did that come from?
So I'm an educator. I have a PhD in higher education administration, and I love school. Like, I am the perpetual educator, right? And I wanted something that was like hip and chic and like tied in with who I am as a professional, but also like tied in with the brand. Also, little known fact, Schoolin Life is the title of one of my favorite Beyonce songs. It's on her album 4. It's called Schoolin Life. Look that up if you're not hip to Beyonce. It's an absolute amazing song, and it just talks about like your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, and continual learning, like that lifelong learning piece. And so I think that ties into what Marcy and I are trying to do, right? Every week, like we're trying to help women and our listeners think about lifelong learning, think about what it means to continually be growing as a person.
And I feel like in every stage of your life, you're learning something different about yourself. In my 20s, I'm learning so much about myself that I did not know before. So I think that's great that you guys are exploring that. But let's talk about the future now. What are your future goals? Where do you hope this will go? Or maybe what's the next podcast episode going to be about?
Yeah. So I'll give you a little bit of a preview. And this is an exclusive because I really
never. An exclusive, guys. This is great.
Right. I never really talked about the episodes before, but next week I'm thinking we're going to talk. I think the conversation is going to be about natural. I think it's going to be called All Natural. So I think we're talking about like the natural food movement and the natural hair care movement, and like some of these natural diets, these plant-based diets, and sort of thinking, sort of digging into that a little bit. Like natural deodorant, is that really for everybody? Or like some of these plant-based diets, like what does that mean for your health and your body, particularly for women, right? Our audience.
So this isn't just podcasts. You guys are also doing these live events to keep everyone in the community kind of going out, Schoolin Life.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's a really important part of our brand because we know that the world is increasingly isolating, right? You're on your phone, your head's down, you got your hood on. People are just kind of passing one another on the street and they're not doing that deep connecting. And so for us, we really believe in the connection and power of community and building community with women and people. And so we love those in-person events. We love to see our listeners in the streets and be like, hey sis, hey girl, like, hey class is what we call them when we're talking about them as a group. And we really want to create more of that community. We want to make sure that people feel that we are approachable, not just in their ears every week, but also in real life.
Yeah, so it's putting a face to the viewers that you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then if somebody wants to, listen to your podcast or attend one of your live events, where can they go? Where can they get this information?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can check us out at schoolinlifepod.com. That's SCHOOLIN Life Pod. That's our website, pod.com. That's our website. You can find live events, upcoming events. I'm so proud. We actually opened up an online store, a merch store for our listeners with mugs and wine bags and coasters and journals, all kinds of things so that our listeners can have a little bit of Schoolin Life in their homes and on their desk. And so really proud of that. So that's available on our website. Following us on social gives a great way to connect with us. So we're at Schoolin Life Pod. That's at SCHOOLIN Life Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. We'd love for our listeners to follow us. You get a lot of behind the scenes on social, right? Yeah. Our Instagram stories are popping, so it's a great way to connect with us. It's a lot of fun. And we often will do lives on social too, so you can just see our face, right? Because podcasting can be kind of a double blind. Like you can hear us, but you can't see us. So we like to get in front of the camera sometimes and go live so you can see us as well.
Well, we appreciate you getting in front of the camera for us today.
Of course.
Thank you, Ashley, so much for joining me. Guys, that's it for this week's episode of The Center of It All. I'm Brittany Weir, and I hope you guys have a great Sunday.